The morning of Saturday, February 28th, in the year 2026, began with a shock. In Tehran, the capital city of Iran, the sky lit up with bright, powerful flashes. Loud explosions shook windows across the entire city, waking millions of people from their sleep. For weeks, residents had felt a war was coming, but the immense scale and force of these attacks were far greater than anyone had imagined. The United States of America and Israel had started a massive military operation together against the Islamic Republic of Iran. President Donald Trump told the world about this dramatic event. He shared a video message at 2:30 in the morning Eastern Time on his Truth Social platform. He described the attacks as major combat operations that were massive and ongoing in Iran. He named the entire mission Operation Epic Fury. The president explained that the goal was to keep the American people safe. He said they needed to stop immediate dangers, which he called imminent threats, from Iran. Israel called its part of the mission Roaring Lion. The powerful strikes began in many different places across Iran. Key cities like Tehran, Isfahan, Qom, Karaj, and Kermanshah were all hit. People on the ground felt the earth tremble beneath their feet. The air quickly filled with the sound of explosions and the smell of smoke. This was a very widespread and strong attack.
It was unlike any other military action the modern Middle East had seen for many years. This sudden war began to change the region very quickly, almost overnight. The old ways of peace and tension were replaced by open conflict. By the end of this very first day, many shocking things had already taken place. There were widespread reports that the supreme leader of Iran had been killed. In response, missiles from Iran were flying and hitting 5 different countries around the Gulf area. The airspace, which is the sky where planes fly, was closed for safety from Tel Aviv to Dubai. The United Nations Security Council, a large group of countries that work for world peace, held an urgent meeting to discuss the crisis. The whole world watched, stunned and worried, as a tense situation that had been growing for years erupted into a full-scale, active war. This conflict began to change everything in the Middle East in a major way. This report will now explore the most important questions about these critical events. We will try to understand deeply how this war started and why, what exactly happened on February 28, 2026, when the bombs fell, who has been affected by this sudden violence, and most importantly, is this event the frightening beginning of a third world war? These are the serious issues we will carefully examine. 2. The long history. The path to war was long.
It started in 2018 when President Donald Trump said the United States would leave the nuclear deal with Iran. This agreement, made in 2015, aimed to stop Iran from making nuclear weapons. After the U.S. left, new money rules and limits were put on Iran. This hurt the country's economy. Iran did not stop its nuclear work. It slowly started to make more enriched uranium, a material that can be used for bombs. Tensions grew in the region. In 2024, Israel and Iran attacked each other directly. In June 2025, the United States launched a big attack called Operation Midnight Hammer.
American planes bombed key nuclear sites in Iran, like Fordo and Natanz. These attacks caused much damage. President Trump said Iran's nuclear program was destroyed, but it was not completely over. Iran still had some parts and slowly began rebuilding by late 2025. The nuclear problem was still present. At the same time, Iran faced huge problems inside. By late 2025, many people were protesting. The economy was very bad. Money lost its value and prices went up. People called for a change in their government. These protests were the biggest since 1979. The government used strong force, and many people died. The United States and Israel saw Iran's government was weak, perhaps its weakest since its beginning. But there was also a try for peace.
Just before the big attacks on February 28, 2026, secret talks happened in Oman. The United States and Iran spoke through Oman's foreign minister. On February 27th, the minister announced a breakthrough. Iran agreed not to keep much enriched uranium and to let global experts check its nuclear sites. Peace seemed very close. However, these peace talks failed. The American government, led by President Trump, had very strong demands. They wanted Iran to completely end its nuclear program, destroy all its missiles, and stop helping certain groups in the region. Iran felt these demands were too much, a threat to its future. With protests at home, Iran's leaders likely thought they could not agree without looking too weak. So neither side made the full changes needed for a deal. The final chance for peace was gone, leaving only military action. 3. The Night of Fire. The early part of 2026 saw a huge military buildup by the United States in the Middle East. 2 large aircraft carriers, the USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS Gerald R. Ford, were already in the region. This made up the biggest gathering of American naval power in many years. President Donald Trump often used social media to talk about this. On January 28th, he posted that a massive armada is heading to Iran, moving with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose. This show of force aimed to put a lot of pressure on Iran. On February 13th, President Trump openly stated that changing Iran's government would be the best thing that could happen. This was a strong signal about the operation's true goal. Officials then confirmed that the U.S. military was getting ready for long, ongoing operations, not just small, limited attacks. They planned to target Iran's entire state and security system, beyond just its nuclear sites. On the morning of Saturday, February 28, 2026, the attacks began. For people in Iran, it was a normal workday, with schools open and streets filling with commuters. At 1:15 a.m. Eastern Time, explosions started. Both U.S. and Israeli forces worked together in this large military action. U.S. F-22 and F-35 fighter jets, along with refueling tankers, flew from bases in Israel and other regional locations. Dozens of Israeli fighter jets also took part, hitting many different targets across Iran. The targets were wide-ranging and critical to Iran's power. They included the command and control centers of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is Iran's main military force. Iran's air defense systems, along with missile and drone launch sites, were also destroyed. Key military airfields and naval bases were hit hard. Nuclear targets, including administrative centers and research facilities, were struck, building on previous attacks. This massive effort was very different from earlier, more limited strikes. such as Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025, which only focused on a few nuclear sites. This new operation, named Epic Fury by the US and Roaring Lion by Israel, aimed to systematically break down the Iranian government. The amount of firepower unleashed was immense. President Trump had promised to destroy their missiles and raze their missile industry to the ground. He also vowed to annihilate their navy and ensure Iran would not get a nuclear weapon. This clearly showed that the U.S. military's goal was not just to disarm Iran, it was to cause the total destruction of the Iranian state apparatus, meaning the government and all its supporting structures, with the ultimate hope of regime change. The operations were expected to continue for several days. The death of a leader. The most important event of the war was the reported killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He had led the Islamic Republic since 1989. On Saturday, President Donald Trump announced that Khamenei was dead. Reports from Israeli officials said that an Israeli airstrike had hit his home compound in Tehran. After this announcement, there were many different reports. Iranian state media did not officially confirm Khamenei's death. However, Iran's Fars news agency, which is linked to the IRGC, seemed to deny the news.
But the same agency also reported that Khamenei's daughter, son-in-law, and grandchild were killed in the attacks that day. This confusion made it hard to know the full truth in the fog of war. Khamenei's reported death created a huge power vacuum in Iran. A nation suddenly lost its highest leader. People began to ask, who is in charge now? This type of attack is called a decapitation strike. The idea is to remove the leader, the head of the state, to make the whole country weaker and unable to fight. But it also causes great uncertainty. United States intelligence agencies had thought that if the government changed in Iran, the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, would likely take control for a while. However, this was not a definite answer. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also said earlier that no one knows who would truly lead if the current government fell. Targeting a nation's top leader brings up serious questions about war rules and moral choices. Is it a fair military target, or is it a political killing? For Iran, the situation was full of fear and questions. A country without its leader faces a very unknown future. Will Khamenei's death stop the war, or will it lead to even more uncontrolled chaos and fighting? 5. The human cost. The war brought many changes, but it also brought deep sadness and suffering to countless families. This chapter looks at the human cost. Soon after the fighting began, sad news started to emerge about ordinary people, known as civilians, who were hurt or killed. One report was especially shocking and caused much sorrow. It spoke about a girls' elementary school in Iran. Iranian news agencies reported that attacks by the United States and Israel had hit this school. It was located in the country's far south. On Saturday, which is a regular school day in Iran, many young students were inside the building. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi shared an image on social media. He stated that the school was full of children when it was bombed in broad daylight. Reports from Iran said that at least 53 young female students tragically lost their lives, and dozens more were injured. He called these innocent deaths crimes against the Iranian people.
The United States military did not confirm or deny if this specific school attack had happened. A spokesperson for U.S. Central Command, Captain Tim Hawkins, said that the military was aware of reports about harm to civilians. He stated that they take these reports very seriously and were investigating them. He added that protecting civilians is extremely important to them, and they would always take every step to avoid unintended harm. He also stressed that the U.S. military has never targeted civilians and never would. By Saturday evening, Iranian state media, using information from the Red Crescent, reported that at least 201 people had been killed in total, and more than 700 people were injured across the country. It was very difficult for international journalists to check these numbers because of the ongoing conflict inside Iran. However, these figures, even if unverified, highlighted the devastating price of the military operation on everyday families. The idea of a clean war, one without any innocent deaths, seemed far from the terrible reality on the ground. Beyond the immediate suffering, there was also a significant debate about the war's justification. Before the attacks, officials from the Trump administration claimed that Iran posed a very close and dangerous threat, calling it an imminent threat. They stated that Iran had restarted its nuclear program and had enough materials to build a bomb very quickly. They also claimed Iran was developing advanced long-range missiles. However, these strong claims were questioned by many important groups. American and European government officials, and even United States intelligence agencies, did not agree with these statements. For instance, the Defense Intelligence Agency had previously said that it would take Iran at least 1 decade to develop the technical skills for missiles that could reach the United States.
Also, the Department of Defense believed that Iran's nuclear program had been slowed down by 2 years after earlier strikes in June 2025. This clear difference between what officials publicly stated and what intelligence reports actually showed created a major controversy. It made people ask serious questions about the real reasons given for the military action. When we consider the reported civilian deaths and the disputes over the actual threat from Iran, we are forced to think deeply about the true moral price of this entire operation. 6. Iran hits back. Iran did not wait. After the attacks by the United States and Israel, Iran hit back very quickly. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, also known as the IRGC, launched a massive wave of ballistic missiles. These missiles flew over the Middle East, hitting many places. They did not just target Israel, they also rained down on U.S. military bases and allies in Jordan, Syria, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. This was a much larger and wider response than anything seen before. Unlike past smaller attacks, this time Iran appeared to aim for real damage. The shock of war reached wealthy cities far from Iran's borders. In Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, missile debris tragically killed a Pakistani civilian. Later, in the city of Dubai, smoke and flames rose from a building on the famous Palm Jumeirah development.
This showed that no place was truly safe. Bahrain, a key U.S. ally, felt the attacks directly. This is where the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet has its main headquarters. Iranian missiles and drones struck the command center of U.S. Naval Forces Central Command. 3 residential buildings in and around the capital, Manama, were also damaged. Quickly, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and the UAE closed their airspace to flights. They all publicly condemned Iran's attacks on their territory. A major global concern was the Strait of Hormuz. Ships in the Gulf received urgent messages that this vital waterway was now closed. The Strait of Hormuz is incredibly important. About 1/5 of the world's oil and a large part of its natural gas passes through it every day. Its closure meant a huge threat to the world's oil supply, sending panic through global financial markets. Investors worried about economies crashing. In Israel, Iran's missiles hit areas where people live. One woman was killed, and 121 others were injured across the country. Despite this wide attack, American forces reported no combat casualties on the first day. They said damage was minimal after they defended against hundreds of incoming missiles and drones. As the region was now on fire and global economies began to crash, Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, spoke to NBC News. He said Iran was interested in stopping the fighting and would talk if the U.S. and Israel halted their attacks.
He also told President Donald Trump that changing Iran's government was mission impossible. The world watched, full of fear and suspense. How much further would the United States go to stop this growing retaliation? The future of the Middle East, and perhaps the world, hung in the balance. 7. The world reacts. The world watched with mixed feelings. The United Nations spoke first. Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the attacks by the United States and Israel were a big danger to world peace. He asked everyone to stop fighting and talk instead. He also condemned Iran's attacks. The U.S. Ambassador, Mike Waltz, defended the American and Israeli actions. He talked about Iran's bad actions in the past. But he did not say Iran was an immediate threat right before the strikes. Russia strongly disagreed with the attacks. Its foreign ministry called the U.S.-Israeli strikes an unprovoked act of fighting. Russia said Washington and Tel Aviv were wrong about Iran's nuclear program to cause a regime change. It warned that the Middle East could see more uncontrolled fighting. China also showed great worry. A Chinese spokesperson said Iran's borders and safety must be respected. China asked for all military actions to stop and for talks to start again for peace in the region. European countries like France, Germany, and the United Kingdom were careful in their response. They said they had often asked Iran to stop its nuclear work and its actions that cause trouble.
They also said they did not take part in the attacks, but they did condemn Iran's missiles that hit other countries. French President Emmanuel Macron said the fighting was dangerous for all. The European Union also asked everyone to be calm and follow international rules. Saudi Arabia, however, condemned only Iran's attacks on its neighbors, calling them brutal. Inside the United States, people had different ideas. Senator Roger Wicker, a Republican, liked the government's actions, but Senator Jack Reed, a Democrat, said President Donald Trump started the war without Congress's permission. This brought up important questions about the War Powers Act. This law says the president must tell Congress about military actions and has time limits. Critics said Donald Trump did not follow this law for such a big war aimed at changing another government. There were also big questions about international law. The United Nations Charter says countries cannot attack another country unless it is for self-defense or if the UN Security Council agrees. The U.S. did not say there was an immediate threat from Iran. This is important because international law allows countries to defend themselves from immediate danger, but it does not easily allow starting a war just because of what a country might do later. Also, the reported killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, raised questions.
U.S. law forbids killing leaders, but some say that leaders of countries at war are fair targets. Many people will discuss if this war was legal or right for a long time. 8. What comes next? The future after Operation Epic Fury is very unclear. Many dangers lie ahead. A big concern is who will lead Iran now. With the supreme leader reportedly killed, a power vacuum might open up. This means no clear leader. Intelligence experts believe that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, could quickly take total control. The IRGC is not just a military group, it is a very strong power in Iran. It affects politics, the economy, and daily life. The IRGC has strong loyalty from its members and controls many important businesses. Any change in Iran's leadership will likely happen through the IRGC or by fighting against it. They are a powerful force, not a quiet one. Another serious risk for the world is nuclear proliferation. Some security experts in Europe warn about this. They believe that if other countries see Iran's situation, they might learn a dangerous lesson. If they think the only real way to protect themselves from big military attacks is to have nuclear weapons, then more countries could start trying to build them. This could cause a dangerous nuclear spread across the world, especially if peaceful talks continue to fail. This would make the world a much more dangerous place. The uncertain fate of the Iranian people is also very important.
So far, their voices have not been heard much in this conflict. They are caught between their own government, which many have bravely tried to change, and the new foreign military actions. These actions, even with good intentions, have unfortunately caused civilian deaths.
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.